Hi, my name is Wan Xuan from Seminar 15 Team 4, and I'll be sharing about my project reflection. So firstly, as part of my contribution for project part 2, after deciding the overall project storyline, my part was to then plot two series of data: electricity tariffs and CO2 emissions from industrial combustions. So as our professor constantly reminds us to need to plot a suitable graph, I then decided that it would be the best to combine the two different series of data into a single graph, therefore plotting a combination of a line graph and a bar graph, each representing a data set. So this way, it is then easier for us to see any correlation between the tax rates, which is a bar graph, and CO2 emission, which is a line graph. And lastly, ensuring that the scales for both x-axis and y-axis is appropriate and legends and titles are included. And apart from this, I was also put in charge to analyze the specific data after each data is plotted. So for example, in the graph mentioned earlier, I've noticed a drastic drop in the year 2008 to 2009. So after further analysis on the context, I've realized that it was mainly due to the effects of the recession called global financial crisis that happened during that period, which led to the drastic drop. So these are the little details that could not be easily spotted unless plotted into a graph. And in addition, despite the minimal effect, we can also see the impact of the electricity tariffs that are set in place to cope with increasing electricity usage throughout the years. So for example, in 2012, tariffs increased, but we could also see CO2 emissions decrease. So what I figure is that there are definitely times where I do struggle with the process, as what we have learned in class is sufficient, but there are still ample room to explore further outside of class. So I've researched again and again and tried to test out many codes learned from the internet. And a book could read should ultimately help consumers to interpret and compare data. Thus, as programmers, we have to learn to only present only useful information and visually appealing charts to them. And given the limited knowledge in programming, our group was bound to make a lot of assumptions. And these are the things a good programmer should further study on. So for example, assuming that tariffs are the main cause of CO2 emissions drop. But in reality, there are many more reasonings behind it. But ultimately, even with such simple programs, they are definitely sufficient to interpret day-to-day data and to track simple things, and to give a rough sense to consumers and businesses about what they should be conscious about, which is the core to every program. Thank you very much.